I have this wooden hoop I made in a previous video. I still have to sand the edges, but mainly I have to smooth that area where I began and I finished the cut. So I use a chisel to remove all I can cut. And I use a file until that area is smooth. I sand the edges. And I also sand the inside part of the hoop to get rid of any imperfection, because the bearing in this router bit needs a smooth surface to roll. I will use this round over router bit to round the inside edges and the outside edges all around the hoop. To root the outside edges, I move the hoop in a counterclockwise direction. And to root the inside edges, I move the hoop in a clockwise direction. And here we can see the hoop once I've rounded all the edges. Now I have to sand until the surface is as smooth as possible. First I use medium grit sandpaper. Carefully, because I don't want to make any flat surface in the edges I have just round. Then I use finer grit sandpapers until I get rid of all the sanding marks. It takes me a lot of time, but if I want a nice surface I must be patient. Now I put the hoop on the table, with the grain direction like this. I put the ruler on the hoop, and I align it with the grain direction. And with the help of the square, I try to find the line that divides the hoop in two equal parts. I measure to one side and to the other, until I am sure I have the line. And I draw that line in the hoop. I will use this small marquetry saw to cut the hoop in two equal parts. This is the surface I get once I cut it. Before I sand it, I will number the hoop parts to know how they go together. Now I put this plank on the sandpaper, and I use the square to keep it perfectly vertical, and I sand the cuts I made in both halves. Like that I make sure the surfaces I sand will be at 90 degrees with the hoop, and one half will fit perfectly with the other. With this screw I can put the drill press table in vertical. I can align it with a long drill bit to make sure the table is perfectly vertical. I have this small piece of board with a small strip behind it. I can hang it on the drill press table like this. Now my idea is to align both cuts with the horizontal edge of the small board, but I don't have room neither to align both cuts nor to drill them, so I will put this piece of board under the drill bit. Like this I can align both cuts with the horizontal edge of this board, and I can drill. I can use it in this position, so I mark the position. I inserted the tip of 3 screws in the board, and I want to put the board in the mark I made. I drive the first screw. Now I measure to make sure the edge of one board is perfectly parallel to the edge of the other board. And I drive all the screws. I eyeball the center of that surface. I align the cuts of that half with the edge of the board. And to keep it in that position, I will screw 2 pieces of plywood there. But first I screw one piece of plywood here, in the edge of the board. I use another piece of plywood to align both cuts with the edge of the board. And now I can screw those pieces of plywood. Like this I can put, always in the same position, one half or the other. I set the drill press depth stop to drill a hole to insert this barrel hinge. Now, because the edge of the metallic table is touching the drill press base, I can move the metallic table, but I don't need to set the depth stop again. So I hang my jig with my workpiece in the metallic drill press table, and I move all together until the drill bit point is right on the mark I made in that cut. I clamp the table, and I drill. And I don't know what happened, but the camera didn't record how I drilled that hole. Now I want to use a dowel center point, but the ones I have are for 6 and for 8 mm dowels, and I need the 10 mm one, so I will use this 8 mm nylon plug. It has some protrusions here, so I think it will fit tight in the 10 mm hole. I cut it there, and I drive this screw like this. I try to drive it as straight as possible. I think it is at an angle. Well, I hope it won't make a very imprecise mark. Of course, it won't be as precise as a metallic dowel center point. I fit it in the hole, and I want to use it to mark that there. And I need to keep both halves aligned here. I bring both halves closer, and I press them to make the mark. There it is. I put the workpiece in the jig. I move the table until the drill point is right on the mark, and I drill the hole. Hopefully, it will be aligned with the hole I made in the other half. Now I drill another hole in the other cut in both halves, but these holes will only be 3 or 4 mm deep. There we can see the difference. To keep both pieces vertical, I screw those plywood pieces. Like this I can paint them and let them dry without any problem. I use walnut bright wood stain. I let it dry. I sand with 400 grit sandpaper. And I apply a second coat. Once the stain is dry, I slightly sand the cuts to get rid of some stain drops. This is the barrel hinge I will use, and it opens like this. And the wooden choker will open like this, so I have to install the hinge in such a way that I can open the wooden choker. I insert the ends of the hinge in the holes, and I press until both hinge barrels are entirely inside the holes. Now I mix some epoxy. And I pour some epoxy inside one of the small holes. And I put there one small magnet. I think it is easier if I pour the epoxy in the magnet and then I put it in the hole. I let the epoxy dry overnight. And now I can see how this wooden choker looks around one neck. Thanks for watching. You can find all my woodworking videos in my channel in YouTube. And if you like my videos, thanks for subscribing to my channel.